Welcome to Living Out Loud with your host, Jess Phillips, where we talk all things addictions, codependency, relationships, and the good, bad, and ugly in between. Welcome, everyone, to the Living Out Loud podcast, my very first episode with our guest, Joe Alvarez. Welcome, Joe.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm so excited.
Me too.
So, Joe, you were the first person that came to mind. You know, the birth of Living Out Loud podcast was an idea to interview not only important people in my life, but experts in the self-help, personal development, anywhere from coaching, therapy fields, and really just getting the ins and outs in what they specialize in, all while having fun along the way. So When I was thinking of my first episode, you came to mind, and welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'm honored. I feel really privileged, Jess, to be a part of to be the number one episode of your series. It's a huge deal.
Huge deal.
I feel honored. So thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So tell me a little bit more about what you've been up to before we get into where you and I first met. So you are a transformational coach. Tell me what that means.
Yeah. So I'm an expert in transformation. So I've been doing this for several years now, and I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds and hundreds of people across the globe, from an array of different people, from entrepreneurs to actors to athletes to executives, salespeople, business owners. I have a few teenagers that I work with, and I love being able to guide people to gain access to their internal power. I come from the belief that we all have the resources internally. We all have the resourcefulness to create the lives the way that we want to. And so I do a lot of work with subconscious paradigms. So maybe for listeners who aren't familiar with that, and to keep it really simple, we have our logical thinking minds, and then we all also have our subconscious minds, which is basically what runs our lives. And the reason why it's unconscious is because we're not really conscious of what's going on down there. And I help people become aware of that, so that they can perform better in sports, so that they can, audition better for films and TV and movies, so that they can perform better in their business, in their relationships, etc., etc.
That's so cool. What a cool job. Tell me, that's so awesome. How did you go from what I knew you were doing before to becoming a transformational coach? What did that process even look like for you?
Well, that process was it's still a process. But what that process looked like was, many years ago, I had a problem with drugs and alcohol, an addiction problem. And that brought me to a point of, nearly death. And I had to, at that point, make a decision to turn my life around. And the reason why I'm just giving that quick backstory, because I think we're going to get into it a little bit, is because in the process of being a sober person, I got the invitation to help a lot of people in the addiction space. And in the meantime, I was working in the corporate world where I did really well for many years. And I got to a place in the corporate space where I was making a lot of money. And I had all the bells and whistles, all the benefits, all the rewards, the accolades, and everything that I thought that I wanted, except for there was a part in me that was saying, you're not really happy doing this. And I ignored that voice for a while, until that voice became louder and louder and louder. And until it became to a point where I just didn't even want to go into work, and I had to leave. I left. I left, which is not necessarily something I would recommend or suggest to anybody who's having conflict within their job right now, but that's what I had to do. I just had to up and leave. And I gracefully did it. And then I got to a point where I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do now? And I had no idea. And I sat in silence. I brought it in silence. I have a meditation practice that I've had for many years. Because often the answers for me come from the silence. And so it was approximately a month and a half after bringing the question into silence. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Okay, universe, tell me what I'm going to do. And then it came, and it was like, all of a sudden, in a matter of 3 minutes, I had a thought pattern, which was like, you love helping people, because I got to do that a lot in the addiction world. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, I knew this already, but the thought was clear that addiction, drugs, alcohol is really about a symptom of the problem. It's not necessarily the problem per se, although it becomes a problem. It's not the root of the problem. And then I thought to myself, well, a lot of people in this world have problems, but they don't have the same symptomology. They don't use cocaine like I did, or drink alcohol like I did. And, but they do other things, right? They do other things. And so the thought was, I need to equip myself with some tools in order to help more people. Literally, this thought process happened, I say 3 minutes, but it was probably way faster than that. And as soon as I had that thought, my phone rang and it was somebody calling about some sober recovery stuff. And then I asked her, I said, hey, didn't you tell me one time that you went to some coaching school? And she was like, yeah, that school's right by your house. And I was like, oh shit. So I went there and I had an introductory weekend. And when something resonates, it resonates, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because when I don't know, in any time in my life that I've made an earnest decision, a sincere call out to the universe or decision, it appears that the universe conspires to support us. And that's basically what happened. I was off the following weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. I was speaking at some convention for sobriety. And at the end of that, somebody comes up to me and tells me, hey, I know a guy in the States who certifies people to become coaches. So I end up calling him a guy, and that's just kind of how it started.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
And so many golden nuggets in there, for any of our listeners and audience, do not quit your job after listening to this podcast. But I think so many people can relate, and so many people that I work with and I speak to say the same thing. I go into this job day in and day out, and I'm just not happy. I'm just not fulfilled, and then you mentioned sitting in silence, right? I really want to get into that and listening to that intuitive voice, which I believe everybody really has, and sometimes it's super loud, sometimes it's very quiet, but it's always trying to guide us in these certain directions. So I'm super impressed. I'm super proud of you for kind of leaving the comfort and safety of what you said was a great job, a corporate job, and to do a total 180 and change in another direction. And here you are, so how long have you been coaching for?
I want to say 7 years now.
7 years.
6 years, 7 years. I can't remember now. I think it was 2016. So maybe 6 years, might be a bit longer than that.
That's how I know we're getting older, is when we do not remember dates anymore. I never thought that was going to happen to me. And I'm like, oh, is it 2012, 2013?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, how old am I again? I'm in those in between. It's not like 40, 45. Yeah. It's in between. I'm like, am I 40? I'm 42. No, I'm 43.
You're always going to be 30 to me. Always going to be 30. I'm always going to be 25 to me, and you're always going to be 30.
I appreciate that. I'll take it.
And honestly, I sit here doing this with you, and I just have such a full heart. It's been over 15 years that we've known each other.
Yes.
Even just to say that 15 years of just consistently staying in each other's lives, whether it was through social media or, just having conversations, but always knowing what you were up to and always on the same path. So
it's a third of our lives.
It's really crazy. It's really crazy, but a really good third.
Absolutely.
And if that's one thing that I can say with confidence, it's like, wow, I don't talk about it a lot. I definitely don't talk about it a lot publicly, but here I am starting a podcast. So here's my time. But, 15 years of continuous sobriety for the both of us really equates to, just onward and upward. It's like, I get to look back at the past 15 years and I'm like, wow, what a clean, albeit some trying times for sure, but mostly good memories, so
100%. I mean, you think about it, like, I got goosebumps just when you were saying it. I mean, 15 years for each of us, we're two people, and we both know there are a lot of people with years of being in, in recovery or sober. But if you think about like just the two of us, what we've set out to go do to try to impact in a positive fashion or help in a positive fashion, the ecology of that, right? Like the ecology of our impact on our families, our close friends, the society, the province, the universe, right? I mean, the vibration of what we're doing. This is, I say this with all humility, ladies and gentlemen listening, because for many years I did not live that way. Rather, quite the opposite. I lived in such a way where I impacted the world and universe in a very negative way. So it's really neat that we're here and we're doing this, right?
Yeah. And it's a great point. I often tell people who a lot of people come to me for kind of, health and wellness reasons, fitness reasons. And they're just like, I don't know where to start, and interestingly enough is that just as health snowballs, right? You make one healthy choice, you're more likely to make another healthy choice later on that day. But it's the same way with the life that we were living 15 years ago. It was just a disaster after disaster after disaster. And it becomes this energy, and you're absolutely right, affecting my friends, my family, anybody that I came in contact with. I wasn't leaving them better than when they, before they met me. It was the complete opposite, and even looking at you physically now, you did not look like this when we first met. So why don't you give listeners a little idea of where you and I first met in 2007?
Yes. Well, Jess and I had the distinguished pleasure to meet in a 5-star drug rehabilitation center.
5-star is right. Yeah.
Yeah, we had I think, Jess, you came in, I was probably about a month in, or I must have been a month in or so into rehab. Yeah, that's where we met. That's where we saw each other for the first time, probably at one of the lowest times of our lives.
Totally, and just to sit here with you and to talk about, and just to think, especially for people listening who maybe aren't in the best place right now, just to have the idea that maybe someday that pain could help someone or be your greatest asset. I remember hearing that in the treatment center that we were in, because we would have recovering people come and speak to us and share their experiences. And they would say things like, I'm so grateful for my sobriety. I'm so grateful to have hit rock bottom. And I was so messed up and angry and broken at the time. And I was looking at them like, are you crazy?
What is it? What are you going to be grateful about?
Exactly. I don't feel grateful. I feel miserable,
I've worked my life from both ends to the ground. Nobody wants to talk to me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the brutal thing too. I think about feeling so bad sometimes, is that when there's positive people around you, it's like, get away from me. You're too positive right now. I need you to stand back.
Your happiness is pissing me off.
That's when you know you're in a bad place, when happy people or happy commercials just irritate you,
That's a good...
you were a month in and I came in, and I think we were both, I think I was in there for 4 months. I think, did you do 3 months or 4 months?
I did three months.
I got the extended program for the extra sick people, I was given the VIP package.
Yeah. VIP, I didn't get that treatment, unfortunately. I mean, I'm just an old boy from Saskatchewan, so maybe I didn't get that.
Yeah. And now tell me, was that your first time in a treatment center?
That was my first time. Yeah, I had attempted to get clean and sober, probably for about 3 years prior to that. And I mean, you can call it many things. You could call it just not being fully ready. You can a lot of pride, right? So a lot of a lot of resistance, you know, and in my experience, resistance is what breeds suffering, right? All suffering begins with resistance in my experience. And I resisted a lot. And so I suffered more, you know, in hindsight. Obviously I didn't know in the moment, but in hindsight, it's, you know, I needed to resist to get to that place where I got cracked wide open, in the sense of like, you know, I got really honest, and the honesty was really like, just like, man, we don't know what the fuck you're doing anymore. Like you can't, like, you just need, the jig's up. You need to follow somebody else. You need to follow somebody else who is living what you want to live. And so, yeah, for those of you who are listening, if you're in a tough spot right now, I know, like, we're, you know, Jess and I are laughing a bit, looking in hindsight, and we're kind of having fun with the idea, and that might not be fun for you. But trust us when we say that, you know, we know what it's like to be where you're at in some respect, right? We know what the darkness is like. We know what it's like to feel hopeless. But if you're listening to this, means you're breathing. And if you're breathing, means you still have purpose.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Tell me a little bit more about the resistance idea. So you said resistance equates suffering. I love that. So what exactly were you resisting at the time?
I mean, at a very just simple level, I mean, I was resisting, I'll put it in air quotes, some sort of conformity or conforming to what others were suggesting to me. But more so on a deeper level, I was resisting the idea that I had lost control. I was resisting the idea that I could not control or run my life like a quote unquote normal person, because I had a lot of friends that I partied with, you know, back in the day, and they sort of just moved on and, you know, got careers and got married and had kids and bought houses, but I just, like, I was different, right? Like I resisted the idea that I couldn't do it myself. But see, and therein lies the problem, right? A lot of the healing is in the connectedness, right? The healing is in the being a part of. The healing is in the human connection. The healing is in the connectedness. The suffering is in the separateness, right? So resisting for me also separated me.
Yeah.
Right. And it just amplified the suffering. So I would be faced with the suffering, and then I'd be like, I don't want to suffer, but I would resist the fact that I could ask for somebody's help, that I couldn't do it on my own. Then I would suffer some more. And I did this for many years, and it just kept getting darker and darker and more painful and a lot more suffering. And I kept harming more people around me. And, but that, you know, that's still true for me today. Like, you know, suffering begins with resistance to what is. There's some non-acceptance of what's going on, that it should be a different way, or it should be this way, or I should be like that, or I should be making this, or whatever that is, whatever that story is. There's a non-acceptance of what is. There's a resistance to it.
Yeah, it's so true. It doesn't have to just be with drugs and alcohol. It could be with a person, a place, a thing, an idea, work, family members, and, you know, just some type of story that we're not okay with, you know, and I see that a lot today with people. And more than ever, I think this has become a very hot topic, you know, sobriety, alcohol, drugs, the legalization of marijuana. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know where they stand anymore. And I've had a lot of friends or family members, you know, ask me questions. Do I need to stop for good? You know, do I need to quit for good? And, you know, I don't know about you, but I always ask the person, I'm fascinated by addictive tendencies. You know, I think ever since I was young, when I love something, I love it to death. I smush it to death. I suck the fun out of it, and I want every last drop, you know, and that can go from alcohol to drugs to shopping, to food, to you name it. If it makes me feel good, I want a lot of it, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, it was an easy decision. Well, I say we're all talking in hindsight right now. Hindsight's always 2020. It wasn't easy 15 years ago, but today in my life, you know, the idea of not drinking and using seems like a pretty simple decision for me.
Yeah.
How did you know, or what do you say to people who are wrestling with the idea? Should I stop? Can I use regularly? Is pot a problem? Is booze a problem? Do you get questions like that?
Yeah, sure. I've had people ask me questions like that. I think, well, there may be a couple caveats to this, but I think that for me, I know the decision had to, it's like with anything really in life, is that the decision had to come from me. Even if there was external influence, the decision had to come from within. So I think that I will do a person a better service if I can guide them to what their truth is, right? Get them past the bullshit, get them past what they think they should do, and just what's their truth, right? I think truth is very subjective. Truth is really based on a bunch of filter patterns of what we've experienced, what our values, our beliefs are, what our environment's about, and but I think what I will usually do in that case is I will guide people and I will ask good quality questions in order to help them find their answer. Because if you force it on somebody, then they may resist, or they will go and they will follow what you're telling them, and then they will come back. They will go back later on saying I was forced, blah, 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 blah. Now, I say that there's maybe a couple caveats in there, because in some instances there are interventions, and interventions sometimes are necessary, and they could be godsends, right? But that would be somebody who has a really bad addiction, right?
Yeah.
When something like an intervention is taking place.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Or for somebody who's just questioning themselves, well, I would ask them the question, like, what do you think? Like, do you think it's a problem? There's maybe a reason why you're asking this.
Yeah.
Because, if somebody did not have a problem or did not think that potentially they had the problem, they wouldn't be asking that question. What's the purpose of the question? Right.
I love that statement. I love it. I love it because I ask a lot of people come to work with me, especially with codependency issues, narcissistic abuse issues, relationship issues. And I always say to them, they ask me, is this the right person for me? Should I feel? And I say, they're exactly the same as you. There's a reason that you're asked. If you've got to ask yourself the question, then maybe there's something inside telling you, hey, look over here, take a right instead of a left. Let's make some change. So why do you think it is that we don't often listen to that voice, or people tend to stuff that voice?
Well, because the rational logical mind kicks in, the prefrontal cortex kicks in. So for me, for example, it was like in my corporate, it was like, well, no, you're making 6 figures a year. Yeah, but you're not really happy doing this, Joe. That's the intuitive voice, or my emotional brain. And then it's like logically it was like, well, no, but they've been around for a while. You're good at it. You've done it. You were like President's Club member year after year. You've climbed this corporate ladder. Yeah, but you don't feel fulfilled doing it, Joe. Yeah, but that's okay. It's only for 8 hours out of the day. Yeah, but Joe, you really don't like. Right. It was like a back and forth. And it's like, so we have this fascinating ability to make reason and logic, right, and interpret as human beings. It's not like animals. They don't interpret. They either go into fight or flight mode and survival mode, or they don't. They can self-regulate themselves when they need to, but they don't interpret with the world. We do, right? And so the interpretation sometimes is off. Sometimes the interpretation that I'm making is not coming from that instinctual or intuitive voice. Right. But the both of them are designed to work together. Right. So it's not by chance as humans that we have the gift to make logic and reason and interpret, and also have, this unconscious part of our mind, which is like, the reptilian mind, the mammalian mind. And I mean, there's different terms for it all, but it's not by chance that we have these. I mean, it's quite powerful if used in a way that is optimal, right?
Right.
But often people don't trust themselves. People don't trust themselves.
Yeah.
And I would go farther to say they're not in rapport with that intuitive part of themselves. They're out of rapport with it.
I like that. Tell me more. What does that look like, being in rapport with yourself or that voice?
Well, it's being able to trust that voice that's happening inside. Like it's being able to A, hear it, B, follow up on it, right? And take action with it. Like, for example, sometimes I'll be meditating and I'll think of somebody, or not even meditating. I'll be in my day and I'll be thinking of somebody. And it's like, I'll call them and I'll just be like, hey, Jess, I don't know why I'm calling you, but it came up in my mind. So I thought I would say hi. And sometimes people like, oh, okay. And we start having a conversation, and then down the track in the conversation, it's like, I get it. I know now why I'm calling you, because they're talking about something else that they spoke with about somebody, which completely relates back to what I've been going through or something to that effect. Or I'll call them and be like, oh, I was just thinking of you like the other day. Like, I'm sure that's happened to you before, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So what happens is that people, they don't, a lot of times, this is a generalization, obviously it's not everybody, but generally people don't trust their instincts. We don't learn how to listen to it.
No.
We learn to make logical, rational reason, and it's a good thing to be logical. It's a good thing to be rational. And that part of your brain is like literally 5% of your brain of what we use. The rest is completely unconscious. So they did an interesting study in the Max Planck Institute, where they were hooking people up to this machine. I don't have the term in my mouth right now, but they were hooking up to people this machine, and they were showing them two pictures, and they were saying, pick one out of the two. And what they discovered from the brain activity is that from the activity in the brain, they had already chosen the picture before they actually said it.
Interesting.
Right? So it's like the decision was made seconds before they actually logically made the decision of what they were choosing in terms of the picture, which goes to show that there's, even before we rationally or logically think we're making a decision, there's something happening at an unconscious level before that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another hot topic right now. Every self-help book that I've read, every spiritual teacher is really talking about the separation of those two minds, and why a lot of people drive themselves crazy, including myself, fighting yourself all day, right? 1 minute it's one decision and the next minute it's the next decision.
Yeah.
I remember reading a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And it was this amazing description of just basically kind of hovering over yourself and watching yourself have this debate or have this conversation. And then to argue, okay, what are those two conversations? What is that, the conscious and unconscious? Is that the, egoic self versus the spiritual self?
Right.
And it's super interesting. And, you mentioned something so important, and I'm assuming it's a big part of your life, but you often talk about meditation, getting still. How does that help, meditating or getting still, with what you were just talking about?
It's coming back to what you just said, actually, in that book, in The Untethered Soul. It's this idea of being an observer of oneself. So scientifically, it's been proven that we will have thousands of thoughts in a day, most of which are not actually based on truth per se. Truth in the sense that, like, fact, like, is the sun coming up tomorrow? Yeah, it's going to come up tomorrow. That's truth. That's fact. That's, no matter where you are in the world, whether it's cloudy out, whether it's clear skies out, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. That is fact. And a lot of the thoughts that occupy our mind are simply just stories or interpretations. They're neither right or wrong, but they're interpretations. But the ability for one to be able to observe that right? Because you're going to have thoughts in your day, but who's the thinker of your thoughts? Right? Who's the thinker of your thoughts? People who are listening right now, you're having all kinds of thoughts while you're listening to us. But who's the thinker of your thoughts?
Yeah.
You are. So being able to sort of get to a place of observing oneself, meditation is very helpful. One aspect of meditation is very helpful in just the idea of being able to sit quietly, and you're going to have a lot of thoughts. The idea of it's not to shut off the thoughts. That's not going to happen. Thoughts are going to come, right? They will come. And the idea is to observe them, not attach to them, to observe them. So I've used this metaphor before, but it's like if you can imagine, you're a fish and you're in the water and you're swimming in the water, and you notice that there are a whole bunch of fishing hooks in the water, right? There's a difference between biting onto the hook and then trying to rip it off afterwards. Difference between that and just trying to keep swimming past the hook and noticing the hooks. Right? And so meditation is very helpful to learn how to observe oneself. And actually, meditation is not necessarily what happens on the cushion, the meditation cushion. I've got one on here. That's not necessarily where meditation happens. It happens when you bring that out there into the world. Right? Because believe me, I mean, I've sat on my meditation cushion for an hour feeling completely spiritual. Then I get to the Tim Hortons lineup and the lady's not moving fast enough in front of me. Because she should know what she wants by the time she gets to the menu. Oh, yeah. Why is she taking so long? I'm so busy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And totally not bring my meditation out into the world.
Totally.
That's where the real meditation happens, is when you get off of the meditation cushion and you walk around in the world with your thoughts. Right? Yeah.
I don't think I know one person who doesn't get triggered in a Tim Hortons lineup or McDonald's or whatever it is. It's like an airport. You just lose your mind and you just get real hasty, you know? I love that fish hook analogy. I've actually never heard that before. And as you were saying it, I was thinking personally of myself and friends and people I work with. It's like, why then do we bite the hook? If I'm the thinker of my thoughts, why then do I sometimes go ahead and make the stupidest decision possible, knowing very well that this is going to hurt either immediately or later on?
Yeah, great question. Great question. And you know, generally, again, it's a generalization, but generally there's a purpose to it. And one might think, well, that's stupid. Why would there be a purpose for me exhibiting an unhealthy behavior? Right. Well, it's kind of cliche, but it's sort of a comfort zone. So it's sort of like the brain likes predictability. So if you've been doing this behavior for a while and you continue doing it over and over again, even if it's an unhealthy behavior, it's predictable. So how many times have we heard about women in toxic relationships continue to go back to those relationships?
100%.
It's predictable. It's predictable. And now, I mean, we could deep dive a little bit more and discover maybe there is a purpose to that. Maybe there is a sort of an attention that they see that they're getting through that strategy, which is a broken strategy, not a broken person, a broken strategy. And it's predictable. So then when you leave your comfort zone, quote unquote, when you try to leave what you know is predictable, what can happen oftentimes is there's a disintegration anxiety. So the brain says, whoa, where are you going? That's not comfortable. Totally. Well, danger. Danger. You just threw out all the carbs. Danger.
Guilty.
Right? And so but the good news about that is those types of strategies, those neurological pathways that are firing together, they can be broken and they can be rewired differently. right? Which is basically what's happening at a mental level, which happened with us in terms of recovery from addiction, how we're progressing in life, different ways when we're changing habits. If there's different habits that I'm changing or that I need to change, or different strategies I need to take in order to accomplish something, or be somebody, or do something, or have something, right? Neuroplasticity is a thing, meaning you can rewire your brain.
Yeah.
Because the brain's in a lot of ways, it's like a computer, and there's some software on the computer, and a lot of that software you can change, right? Totally. There's hardware, like the amygdala, like that fight or flight response that is in us. That's like hardware. You can't change that. But a lot of it is software, and we can change it. The idea is just learning how to do it. So obviously, that's the question, right? Learning about how to do it. And there's a plenty of ways. There's, like you said, in a lot of books, there's lots of different types of coaches and therapists and psychologists, and there's so much help, right? There's so much help. That's the thing. If anyone is listening that is struggling, or that keeps repeating certain destructive behaviors and broken strategies, okay, fine. And there's help. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank goodness.
Thank
goodness that there's resources out there. And as you were talking, and I'm starting to become fascinated about, I've been hearing mindset coaches and peak performance coaches. And I often thought, okay, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to change your mindset? Because I truly believe in different stages of change as well, and a lot of people that come to me might not necessarily be in the stage yet of wanting to change their mindset, because they don't know. Yeah. They don't know what's happening, and as you were speaking, I kept thinking about the food, right? And so many people come to me like, I'm addicted to sugar. And I think, how sad is it that we go into a grocery store and you get the hot, fresh bakery first thing in your face with the $2.99 hot, sticky, warm donuts.
I did it last night.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you, and right there. And it's like, you've had a hard, long day. You should be eating well. You should be going to the gym. We know we should be meditating, but then there it is, hot, fresh, cheap, ready. And sometimes that easier, softer way, sadly, is what gets us stuck in that loop. To me, that's one of the biggest hooks that I hear of, is that, I want to feel good about my body. I want to have more energy. I want to, help lessen my anxiety and depression. And I'm a firm believer that you can change at least 30% of that with your diet, and it's sad today that, to eat healthy, or to meal prep, or to buy organic, it can still be so expensive. And then you get this food that's literally going to kill you and make you more anxious and more depressed. And it's so readily available, so to undo those hooks is pretty hard. It's pretty hard.
Undo the hooks. And, you and I have talked a lot about this, but it's like, a lot of people want to do things. But at a very unconscious level, the identity of the person that wants to do things is not consistent with what they want to do.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean?
So it's like, a lot of people, when they want to change their outcome, so they want to change their environment, their results, they want to get to an ideal weight, they want to make more money, they want to launch a business, they want to attract an ideal partner. Typically what people will do is they'll try to change their behavior. So if it's your ideal weight, they will change all the food in the kitchen and go get a gym membership. If it's an ideal partner, maybe they'll put up a profile on some sort of dating website. Or if they want to start a business, they'll start changing the behaviors of looking things into how to start the business, how to launch it, all of this, right? So people will typically go and try to change their behaviors, which is good. The problem with that is if at a very subconscious identity level, I'm just too lazy, I don't have enough time, I'm too busy,
Mm.
or like I'm always going to be single, or like if at an identity level that stuff is going on and it's not consistent with the behaviors, you'll always go back to who you're being. So it's so yes, change the behaviors, absolutely change the behaviors, and look at, well, if you did have the result that you wanted, so if you did have the ideal weight that you wanted to have, how would you be being? Probably not undisciplined.
Right.
Probably you wouldn't be procrastinating. You'd probably be committed.
Yeah.
You'd probably be being a healthy person, right? If you wanted to attract, if you already had the ideal relationship, how would you be being? Right? You'd probably be invested. You'd probably be vulnerable. You'd probably be honest. You'd probably, right? If you had the money you wanted to achieve, if you had that already, how would you be being? You'd probably be an abundant person. You'd probably be a prosperous person. You'd probably be a committed person, right? Like this, like it starts from a place of identity. How do we see ourselves? What is your perception of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And if that is not consistent with the behavior, you'll always go back to who you're being, because it's always easier to do who you are rather than do who you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you and I have worked together professionally, and I think that was the most influential and important thing that you left me with, because I was an expert at changing my environment.
Yeah.
Exactly like you said, I'm going to go to Lululemon. I'm going to get the outfits.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Bikram yoga 6 days a week, right? I'm going to fit the part. It was always the part. It was always the environment. And then and I've read enough. I've studied enough. I'm pretty well versed in the self-help department, but I didn't understand exactly that point. I didn't understand that I still viewed myself deep down at an identity level as somebody who could never achieve the things that she wanted.
Bingo.
I didn't even know that was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really didn't, and I don't think for a lot of people listening that they know either, because so many people, and I'm sure you get the same people calling, so many people call and say, I've tried every diet.
Yeah.
I've dated every guy or girl under the sun.
I'm tired of swiping.
I hate Tinder. It's Tinder's fault.
Yeah.
Bumble's fault.
I've deleted it and I've re-added it 6 times.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. I hear that one a lot. Yeah. I just tell people, just remove it from the home screen. Don't actually delete it, so you don't have to fill the profile in again, just put it on pause, mute it for a little bit. It's so true. And I think the process of just like unpeeling that onion, there's so many layers underneath that I was still so unaware of. And I think once you realize that you can change the way that you view yourself, and you can change the way that you project your future, is game changing.
Game changing. Yeah.
It really is.
And I've been so, and I say this, with every fiber in my being, I've been so honored to guide you and to witness you do that, because you did the work, right? Like I just guided you. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's game changing when you peel back, because you said earlier on, right? You said some people are just not aware, or they're unconscious of what their problems actually are, right? They don't know. It's an unconscious incompetence, right?
Totally.
But then what happens is that incompetence starts to become a bit conscious. And that's usually like something's not working, or there's a problem here, or I'm unhappy, I'm frustrated, or whatever it is. And then we work to be consciously competent, and then that becomes an unconscious competence where it just becomes part of who we be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, and it's like anybody can change. It's just about yeah, it's just about looking at what's underneath the surface. I mean, this is why pro athletes that perform at such a high level of performance still have coaches.
Yeah.
Because you can't see what you can't see. This is why I invest in my coach every year, because, you know, even with all my experience and my knowledge and wisdom and teachings and learnings and readings, I mean, I'm going to be on this trajectory of evolution until the day I leave my body. So I like to have somebody help me discover those things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Same here, you know, but I also can understand how frustrating it can be for people, myself included, trying so hard, right? Like trying to do all the things that we think are suggested. And some of those can include, I'll speak for myself, but, you know, starting off with rehab and support groups and yoga and meditation, therapy, school, endless, countless degrees, which are, you know, all amazing and have served me well and served others well. But I remember contacting you and getting to this point where I'm like, God damn it, I've tried so hard, blood, sweat, and tears. And there's still a part of me saying, you're going to fail. You're never going to do it. You're an imposter. Nobody's going to listen to you. Nobody wants to listen to your podcast. Nobody wants to read your blogs. And I'm like, who the hell is that voice? Because it's not what other people see when they see me.
Yeah.
Two different worlds.
Yeah.
Right. So I personally want to thank you for that. You know, it was a real, you know, we worked together for 10 weeks and there was some tears. I didn't think there was going to be tears. I was like, okay, you know, let's do some business coaching. There was some tears. I had to cancel like a day of work after I finished one session with you. You know, I really did. But
it just goes to show, right? Like, it just goes to show that for you, for myself, and I'm saying this to myself and for you and for listeners who are listening to this, like wherever you think you are right now in life, wherever that is, wherever you think you are in life right now, you're actually so much more than that. So much more than that, and you don't even know it yet. Right? But this is the process of uncovering, right? This is the exciting thing about life. And so, you know, like in my experience, like I've failed so many times.
Same.
You know, like I have fallen on my ass so many times. But yes, a lot in hindsight when you look at it. Like, I mean, drugs and alcohol completely ripped everything out of my life, like anything of value out of my life. Material, people, my soul, my morals, my values, everything. Completely tore it all out. And yet, it gave me everything that I have in life today.
Funny, eh?
So more and more, like I would say, especially in the last 5-6 years, I invite it. It's like, okay, let's go fall on our faces. Yeah. Let's go fall on our asses. Let's go mess up, because I know now. I know, even if it's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable doesn't mean bad. It just means uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I know that if I go through discomfort, on the other side of that, there's new order. There's a new way. Or I can just continue in discomfort. But I know now, like I experientially, I know it. There's a knowingness. And so it's like I invite it. Bring on the shit.
Yeah.
That's my own reframe with it.
Yeah.
Just because I've been through shit so many times in my life and so much discomfort in my life. But it was the catalyst to help me evolve into the person that I'm being today.
Yeah. I literally could cry listening to you right now. I knew it was going to get emotional on this podcast, but it's going to be me crying every single episode. I know it for sure, you know, because you just brought me back the pain is excruciating when you're in it. And I think that that's the confusing and the scary part, and what brings on the fear is that I don't want to feel that kind of pain, soul crushing pain, especially sober, because I've got nothing to grab. You know, it's gone. The cigarettes are gone. The Coke's gone. The booze is gone. For today, the sugar's gone. You know, and it's like, okay, you better lean into that feeling. But you're absolutely right. Historically, looking back in my life, that pain, the next day or the next month or the next year, it's what I needed to go through. It's my biggest teacher. It allows me to articulate pain and solutions to other people. It makes me stronger, more confident. And I remember you saying something to me, because I have a big fear of looking silly. I have a big fear of putting myself out there, being vulnerable, and people just not accepting it, you know? And you said something along the lines of, you're going to try stuff and you're just going to try it on, just like a sweater. And I love clothes, and I've got a hell of a lot of sweaters. And sometimes I try one on, I look in the mirror, I get the feedback, and I'm like, that's not looking too cute today. And I put something else on, you know? So as soon as you said that to me, it was like, yeah, Jess, try it on, put it out there. If it's not well received, try something different. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal.
It's taking what you, it's trying it on. It's living. It's living out loud. Is what
living out loud.
That's exactly what it is. It's living out loud. It's and who, people are going to, most people, I worked with a lot of people in my last 6 years, like hundreds of people in my last 6 years, from one-on-one coaching to trainings and I'll tell you, man, like I'll say 99%, and I'll just keep 1% for sake of argument, but I would say 99% of people had some sort of fear of rejection of some sort. Most people are afraid of getting rejected on some level. Right? But it's like, they're not living my life. And people are going to judge. There are probably people judging me right now listening to this podcast. I mean, whatever. Like, okay. I know that if I'm judging people, it's actually my stuff.
Totally.
Right. But I know that, like, I say that from a place of compassion. I say that from a place of like a guy who was fucked up a lot in his life. Right? So I say that from a place of compassion, that when I know when people are judging me, that's their stuff. And I know when I'm judging somebody, that's my stuff.
Totally.
Right.
And how sad of a fear too, because when I see friends, even strangers on Instagram, social media, when they're being creative and they're being vulnerable and they're putting their stuff out there, I'm like, good for you. Get at it. Go get it. You know what I mean? I'm so proud and happy for them. But when it comes to me, and I'm like, oh, they probably hate it. It's so silly.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But that's maybe a whole other discussion, right? When we're talking about identity, like if you even think about it, even from a place of birth, our identity was coming from the external in, right? Like we didn't even choose our own names. It was given to us. Our identity was almost given to us. And then we go through, this imprint stage from 0 to 7 years old, where it's just a bunch of like, we're little unconscious minds. And there's a whole bunch of installations that are happening all around us, and well-intended for the most part, like loving families, school, education, media, some people in religion, and then we model that stuff, and then we go out and we try it on, and then sometimes we discover at some point in our lives where it's just like, hold on one second, I've been operating by this belief or this value or this identity, but that's not really me, right? And it's okay. Like, it's all right. It's what you picked up along the way. And it's okay to say, you know what? Well, that's actually not me. Let's discover who me is actually. What do I like? What turns me on? What turns me off? What kind of sweaters do I like? Right? I mean, and that's this discovery. It's like this discovery back to our true selves. And when we get there, I mean, when we get past all the shit, all the programming, all the beliefs we've copped along the way and from the experiences that we had, when we get down to the truest nature of ourselves, and I can tell you this from sitting with so many people, that it's beautiful. Mm. It really is. But it just gets covered up with stuff, right? Yeah. So it's like this whole process of like, evolution, awakening, whatever you want to call it. It's like coming back to who you are. If you want the purest form of water, you don't add anything to it. You remove the impurities.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's just like, we don't need another, Joe Alvarez. Like I'm me. I matter because I'm me. Right? You matter, Jess, because you're you. And for all you listeners out there, you matter because you're you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Right? Yeah.
And we live in this society that says add more,
yeah,
buy more, do more.
Yeah.
And it's just like you said, it's actually the art of subtraction.
That's right.
Remove more, listen more, get quiet more. It's actually the opposite of what we're told to do all day long, all day long. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Joe, I literally could talk to you for 24 hours straight.
Yeah, a whole day.
My listeners are going to hate me after podcast 1. So we are going to cut this short, but you honestly, I am proud of you. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you.
I just feel lucky that, where we've come from 15 years ago to where we are now, having the relationship to be, to be humble enough to be in each other's lives, learn from each other, support each other. You have helped me. It's like unlock that I won't say final piece, because I don't think it'll ever be the final piece, but unlock such a huge barrier that was blocking me from so many things. And I just feel so much lighter and so much freer to just continue to try things on,
live out loud.
Live out loud, baby. Live out loud, and I'm just going for it. And I just really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you, and thank you for being episode 1. This is going down in history. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Jess. Pleasure's mine.
Thanks, Joe. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone, for listening and supporting Living Out Loud. Be sure to tune in next week for another fun, juicy episode.